Self-doubt can hold people back from reaching their full potential, whether in their careers, relationships, or personal growth. Confidence is a skill that can be developed, but what are the most effective strategies to overcome negative self-talk and build lasting self-assurance? In this interview series, we're talking to mindset coaches, psychologists, authors, and other experts who can share actionable insights on overcoming self-doubt and cultivating confidence. As a part of this series, we had the pleasure of interviewing Ray Houston. Ray specializes as a motivational speaker, life coach, and author of the book, There is Life After Drugs. How Bad Do You Want It? He has dedicated his life to liberating people from all different ages. He helps them to learn to believe in themselves and to make things possible for themselves. This comes from his own intense personal transformational experiences. His sharing of those experiences allows others to build their confidence, create brave aspirations, and even push beyond their limits. His work is based on determination, resilience, and personal empowerment. Those wow factors that develop people to unlock their potential and to create permanent change. Thank you so much for joining us in this interview series. Before we dive into the main focus of our interview, can you please just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, to really start at the beginning, I'm a person that went through a lot of hell because I was not motivated. I was raised right, but I went left. My mindset, it was all fantasy. Things were mostly fantasy. And I just didn't have any real drive. And then life took a change. I was very protected by my parents, although I come from the lower end of the ghetto, as we say sometimes. Uh, and usually in school, as I was growing up, I wasn't activated into the class as much because I was in my own little mind, in my own little world, which a lot of young people are. They're stuck in their own little world. But as I progressed through life, I ran across a lot of difficulties, and some of my difficulties were because I had not matured as I should have. Having been raised right, it still didn't push me or motivate me past my fantasies. Uh, I had to get to a place where I realized who I was as opposed to who I said I was. And so my decision to not study actually as hard as I could have or as hard as I should have was because I was blessed physically. And so I could run extremely fast since a very young age. And everyone that knew me is, oh, he's going to the Olympics. But I didn't know that I had terrible spinal conditions. Arthritis was the least of my trouble. And so, not having prepared myself, once I found out that I had this issue that interfered with my gift, then I had to find another way. I was not prepared for college. And so I went into the building trades. And going into the building trades, I found out what life was really about. Now I'm faced with really being realistic about who I really was as opposed to who I said I was. Long story short, my devastation became my motivation. I was devastated by many factors, and eventually, once I got my business, I actually went through a period of drug addiction, which lasted 27 years. So from the age of 14 and to the age of 20, to the age of 41. But here's the good thing. I didn't give up because I was raised to fight. And my fighting depended on me being realistic. So, in other words, would the real you stand up? And so the real me had to stand up and take accountability because I was in so deep, I was so really messed up that I had to pull a rabbit out of the hat, so to speak. And I didn't even have a hat, and there was no rabbit in it. So I was really in a bad situation. But here's the bottom line for me. When it really got bad, when it really went beyond what I could even imagine, I found out that it was going to take determination, it was going to take commitment, desire, and confidence. And so those are my key words that I use to govern my life. And coming out of drug addiction, I became a minister. I'm now the director of a nonprofit Christian ministry. Do have like 45 years business experience dealing in construction for the federal government, through the city of Milwaukee and state of Illinois and different places. But I learned through all of that that when you're coming out of whatever you're coming out of, if you don't want it bad enough, it's not going to happen. It doesn't happen because of what you say you want to do. It will happen because you do what's needed. And that's the issue. Sometimes we think of how we would like things. We think of how well it would be, because we have great minds and we can fantasize. And that doesn't change anything, excuse me, because it's the actions in life that change things.
Your actions have to be consistent with your words, thoughts, and deeds.
Yes, yes, yes. So I do presentations, maybe at a college, maybe at a Head Start, maybe at whatever. I've dealt with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Bloomington Normal. I've been at the McLean County Jail for about 16 years as a volunteer chaplain. I do a lot with adults on the phone, in person. And the main thing I try to do is to encourage them that they have to believe it and they have to activate it. And in order to do that, you got to be honest with yourself. You
Yes.
have to be able to tell yourself who you really are and where you're really at. And until you admit to yourself the realities of your situation, you cannot move forward. And so in my mind, I understand that my mind is going to get me where I need to get. So I have to feed it positive thoughts that are coming from my emotions, from my heart, from my spirit, man. And so here's the thing, the power of a made up mind is what actually got everything going. Because once my mind was fixed and I refused to be a loser, my mother, my father, they raised me right. I went left. But then they put something in me that maintained me when I was all the way down, and it forced me to come back to what my parents always taught me. And so here I am today. I'm speaking to young people, I'm speaking to older people. Uh, I'm helping people with their businesses as best I can as a life coach. And I have to tell people that if you would allow me to speak into your life, not from any greatness of my own, but from my experiences of the things that I learned when I was the world's greatest dummy. And I learned, here's one thing I did learn, there is success after failure. It's a matter of, are you going to go after it or are you going to talk about it? And so the hardships, I had them. Most of the time, my issues were because I was not who I said I was, and
Hmm.
I was not where I said I was. And so having to understand that I was wasting my life away because I was living in a world of fantasy. It activated something in me. So that devastation became my motivation. And so it took years. I'm not talking as if, oh, I got it. That's what I need to do. It didn't happen that way either. I actually went through the learning process, the hurting process, the trials, the errors, the mistakes, the mishaps. But I did not quit because one thing I found out from a friend of mine, he said, losers never win. And how did he tell me that? Quitters never
Quitters
win,
never win and
and
winners never
winners
quit.
never quit. And so that's a part of my heartbeat because regardless of how bad things were, and I had a 27-year drug addiction, I probably spent about $500,000. Became a single parent. I raised my daughter. I had two other children, and I had to be there for them. And it took everything I had to forget about me. And that was the issue. It was always me. Even in my religion, I believed in God, but I did not worship God. Matter of fact, I'll be honest, I could just be honest right now and say, like many, it was about the fishes and the loaves. It wasn't about I love God.
No, I just want to keep talking. I'm
Okay,
going to ask you a question
okay,
when you get to it because
okay.
you made me think of
So,
something.
okay. So here's the bottom line. I did not be honest with myself. I only wanted God for what I could get. Once I realized who I wasn't, once again, in another area of my life, I had to be determined to do the things I needed to do for real. No, I mean, for real. I had to own up to the fact that I was just a liar and a procrastinator. And you had a question.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets for what you put yourself through? Do you ever, man, oh man, look what I did to myself. Do you ever feel bad about that? Did you ever get down on yourself for what you put yourself through? And I'm asking that for a reason because and my journey wasn't about drugs, it was about weight loss. But I, had a lot of similar things. But did you ever get down on yourself to where,
Okay.
or did you learn to forgive yourself?
Okay. That's a question that I'll have to be honest about right now. Okay. Excuse me. Because of the magnitude of my stupidity. Now, I'm an intelligent person. I'm no Einstein. I don't have a doctorate degree, but
You messed
so
up. You messed up.
I basically did not do most of the things I needed to do. And it eventually caught up with me to where, and even now, sometimes my wife would be like, uh-oh, because she'll hear me go, ugh. And so it's a cringe. I'm like, oh, and it's really like, oh, did I really do that? Although years ago. And so, yes, it antagonizes me. But here's the other thing: when I'm preaching, it motivates me, it moves me because I understand who I really am now, and I understand I'm not by myself, and I understand our mentality. A lot of times when we're going through, whether we're young, middle aged, or old, when you're not real and true and honest with yourselves, you're doing things and you're telling yourself all kind of tales about I only did it for this reason or whatever the excuse. And so, yes, it still haunts me today. But yes, I have forgiven myself, but I have not forgotten my
No,
stupidity,
that
which was basically because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I was addicted to procrastination. I was addicted to my own desires, my own welfare. And the transition had to come, and that transition came over a long period of time.
Hmm.
And so I'll tell anybody, yes, a change may happen that today you're like this, yesterday you was like that, but the workings that took place that transitioned you happened for a long period of time,
Yeah,
in my case.
yeah, it's the same thing with me. I was getting ready to turn 50, and you said something interesting. You used the word waste a while back when you were talking. That was what motivated me when I was getting ready to turn 50, February 1st, 2009, 4 months before my 50th birthday. I woke up and I said, I'm wasting my potential.
Yes,
And
yes,
I told my wife, I'm done playing this game.
yeah,
I'm going to start eating better now. I'm going to start exercising now. My exercise of choice is going to be walking.
yeah.
And I'm going to stop BSing myself. And I'm going to tell
Okay.
the truth to myself. And the truth is, I need to do something. And,
That's it.
and I did. But it, but it, I have come to realize, and as you said, the reason why I asked you, did you forgive yourself? I mean, I did some humdinger things. I mean, all the relationships I wasted, the opportunities I wasted, mistakes I made, and but every single one of those things I did made me into the person I am today. And to be quite honest with you, I happen to like the person I am today. And I would not be the person I am today. I would not know the things I know today had I not gone through that. As
That's
bad,
key element.
as bad as
That's
it
key
was.
element. Key
Now,
element.
now, with all that said and done, I think if you listen to guys like Pastor Ray and you listen to guys like me, just because we went through hell doesn't mean you have to. You can figure things out if you're ready, and if you're in the right mind place, maybe you can save yourself some of that hell.
Well, here's what I look at, sir. I have to be honest with you.
Go ahead.
For me,
Yeah.
speaking about anyone else or expect this in your life, I'm talking about me,
Yeah.
what I experienced, and I did not know it would work this way. My parents instilled so much in me, but I was not in my right mind.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking about when I got on drugs. I'm talking about beforehand because I was a procrastinator and I thought I'm going to the Olympics. And so I didn't prepare myself for life. After the tragedy of the addiction and having $1 million business after only a few years in, I eventually lost the business because of my addiction. I was well respected in commercial business and government business, 8A certified after only a few years, and BP Mobile. I'm doing projects for them all over the place and different places. And but then after I lost it all because of me,
Hmm.
then determination set in because there's something about no, I will not be a failure. Okay. I will not fall any further. I will get up. And I prayed about it. I did what I had to do, and I became a realist. This is not right. This is what's right. I
Hmm.
have to do this in order to do this because if I don't do this to do this, I'll never get to do this. And so after having lost my business, I regained my business. Uh, I started in Milwaukee after rehab. I went to Chicago, and I ended up back in business with the government and I was determined, and those efforts caused by that determination, I ended up, of all people, me, the ex-junkie, Pookie, the brother off the corner, was able to eventually begin to do projects for the federal government, including, get this, me, ex-junkie, I got to paint the Drug Enforcement Agency downtown Chicago. Me of all people. And then I got to do the FBI offices downtown Chicago. And then I got to do Homeland Security, downtown Chicago, FREMA. And then eventually the one of the ones that I really like to brag about, and that's what I'm doing. I was so blessed to be able to paint Senator Barack Obama's office suites. And I brag about it not because it's something that I got to do, but it's the fact that having been so low and being able to come back. And this fell into my lap. It's not like I went out and I got this big project. It fell into my lap because of who I had become. I was blessed and I was asked by the contractor, would you like to do this project or should I give it to another? So, see, it was my character, it was my personality, it was my demeanor that caused the person to say, I want you to do it if you want to do it. So that's why I brag on it because my character, my personality had changed so much, I was offered this honor. So I brag on it because my character and personality was changed. That devastation became motivation, and I began to be a different person. And so I know, regardless of the hell we may be going through, if you want it, you can get it.
Absolutely.
Now, I,
I agree with you completely.
I talk about there's life after drugs. How bad do you want it? But there's life after failure. There's success after failure.
Failure
If
is a
you,
part of success. It teaches.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so now my heartbeat, my mentality is about helping people because I was blessed. And I was blessed. I got blessings. So, I want to give back. But I don't just want to mentor somebody. I'm trying to coach people through their business concerns, their personal and everything else. Because with business, believe me, I can tell anyone, you may be gifted. Like myself, I went through the building trades and the apprenticeship program. My issue was I got in financial trouble along with the drugs, but I got in financial trouble because I didn't know anything about business when I went into business. And so you cannot run a business if you don't know business. Knowing your trade is one thing, but knowing business is a totally different thing. You have to be an estimator, you have to be an expediter. Uh, your human relations department all on your own. And so with 16 workers and 8 trucks and all of that stuff, I had no clue as to what I was supposed to be doing. But I was blessed to learn and I didn't give up because I created a lot of my other problems other than my drug problems. I created other problems because I didn't know what I was doing. But here's the thing, will you stay long enough? Would you work hard enough that you could overcome your issues because you have to do it and you get help from where you need to get help. And I'll tell anybody I went and got help. I talked to this business person. I talked to the Business Development Center, Minority Contractors Association, wherever I had to go. I humbled myself and I went and I got instructions.
You asked for help. It
I
takes
had to
that
do it.
courage to
I
ask
had to
for
do
help.
it. I had to do it. I had no other alternative because the Milwaukee Urban League, they had a program where they help young minorities get positioned to go into the building trades and complete their apprenticeship programs. And so I had resources. I didn't do stuff on my own. I can't sit here and say, well, this happened and that happened. Then I went in, I did this and I did that. No, I didn't. I got in trouble and I went and got help. That's what really happened. I messed up so bad, but the help was so good.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that helped. I humbled myself and
Hmm.
I went and I got help because I did some very idiotic things. In spite of my intelligence, I didn't act on my intelligence. I act on nonsense and I did nonsense. I wasn't who I said I was. I wasn't where I said I was. And I wasn't doing the things I claimed I was doing. And when it was all said and done, I had created a mess. So, like anybody, I was screaming and hollering, ah, and I had to go get some help.
But the
But
important thing is that
you
you told yourself the truth.
I had no choice. And I'll be honest, I didn't have any choice. It was either that or total failure for years and years and years. It was bad enough to be on drugs for 27 years, but I didn't want to be there for life.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I, I didn't because you can see here's something. There's no release date for being messed up in life. It's not like you get a jail sentence and there's a release date
Hmm.
or anticipated release date. When you're messed up in your business, in your personal life, there's no release date. Okay, in 2037, you're going to be released from this thing you've created. It doesn't work like that. If you don't get help, you'll be there and you'll be there and you'll be there. And that terrified me. And it's like, oh, no, you don't. So I went and got help.
That's
I had to get help.
that takes courage. And you talk about confidence. I heard a very good definition of confidence a week or two ago. Confidence, self-confidence. Self-confidence is the willingness to try. Think about that.
Yes, yes, yes,
Being
yes,
willing to try
yes,
and
yeah.
learn from the things you do right, learn from the things you do wrong. But the important thing is learn and then move on. Successful people make mistakes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all the time. The difference is they might learn from those mistakes, whereas some people never learn from their mistakes.
Well, one thing I try to do now, as I deal with young people and contractors as well, because I've invested in about 7 contractors in my 40 something years. I try to give them some basics for being a business person when it comes to estimating, expediting. And I think I was one of the best expediters. Nobody told me that. I think I was because I worked on some very big projects and I had to really expedite. And because I messed up some, I got better and I grew and became better. But I try to encourage people learn your business, whether it's construction, whether whatever it is, learn your business. And then you have to strive as best you can to be the person you claim you are. Because if we're not careful, that folliness, that silliness in our personal lives sometimes will keep us at a place that we cannot be as productive as we should be in business because we're so messed up in our personal lives, wasting time and procrastinating that we can't be the professional that we're qualified to be because of our personal issues in life. And those personal issues in life are stagnating our business because if we won't do better. And sometimes you don't get the opportunities that I got. I got opportunities. People invested in me not because of me. Maybe they seen something that one day he could be something, but whatever caused it, I know most of it was from him, you
Yeah.
know. But sometimes people just, let me help this dummy out here because he's really messing up. And I got blessed.
But key important part, you listened.
They had no choice or
And
failed.
yet you had a choice.
Uh,
You had a choice. You didn't like the choice, so you listened.
My mom and daddy would have got up from their grave.
I bet they would have.
Oh my goodness. And I'll be honest with you. A lot of the times, here's what helps me. I'll be honest with you. Being a single parent, knowing that if I fall, my daughter is hidden disaster, knowing that I'm the parent of two other children and they loved me even through my addiction, the thought of becoming a total failure was going to ruin them. And I said, no way. I ain't
Excellent.
doing it. I will not
Excellent.
become another statistic. I will not go out like that. And I went through pure hell. Matter of fact, I'll just tell the truth. It was if it wasn't for my children, I'd still be on drugs. I didn't even do it for me. I did it for my children.
I I get it. I remember talking to a gentleman back, I think it was like 2007, Berkeley, California. He started a nonprofit, and the reason why he started it was he too was on drugs. And he realized that if he didn't, he had like 10 employees or whatever who were counting on him for their paychecks. And he got to the point where he realized it was either the drugs or their paycheck.
Yeah, yeah,
And he said, I've got to give them their paycheck. And that was when he quit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All in all, what's inside of you? Uh, is there anything worthwhile inside of you? Some people have a made up mind, some people develop a made up mind, and some people just don't care. Because let's face it, we can be captured. And I'm not trying to get spiritual, but we can be captured by by that other guy, and we find ourselves being so controlled and so manipulated that we cannot really deal with what we're dealing with because we're no match. And so me, I surrendered. I'm like, hey, I give up. I just gave it all to the big guy, and there came my help because I really, really, really was messed up because I knew so much and I knew better,
But you did
and
it.
that caused my fall.
But you did it. You came out.
I can't count the tears. I can kind of count the money somewhere around $500,000. But I'll be honest with you, I had addictions to so many things, and I'm not going into my list. Oh
That
my
was the
goodness,
cost
no.
of your that was the cost, that $500,000 was the cost of your education.
Oh, can I have some back now?
No, but
But
you got the education.
I tell you, hardship brought my success, whatever success I have now. Not a big time anything. I don't have a lot of money, but I have dignity and
Money is
pride and
not everything.
self-respect
Money is
now.
not everything.
No, it's not. But one thing I cherish is my heart. My heart, whether I like people or not, I want to help them. And my word for respect is kindness. And so I thrive off being a kind individual because my mother and father were kind individuals. They did what they did because they wanted that reputation of being fine, outstanding, upright individuals. And so it's like a family thing. And we had our troubles, our issues. Our parents weren't perfect, but they matured to a place and they passed that on to my sister and I. Well, my sister, my brother, and myself. And so there was something pushing me and motivating me. Failure was not an option. And so if you got it, you better use it. If you don't got it, well, you better get it.
That's a real good way to put it. In closing, is there anything you want to say in the very end? Anything else you want to add that you maybe didn't cover or you want to add?
Determination, commitment, desire, and confidence are the key elements for a made up mind. The power of a made up mind will take you places you never thought you could get.
Absolutely. I could not
That's
agree
it.
with you more. Thank you.
That's it. You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much.